4th of July savings are happening now at the Home Depot with select appliances starting at $398. Plus, get free delivery on appliance purchases of $398 or more, no membership required. Upgrade your kitchen with a modern and sleek GE Profile refrigerator featuring hands-free autofill for the perfect pour every time. And make laundry day easier with 2-in-1 washer-dryer combo innovation that completes laundry in about 90 minutes. Shop top brand appliances now at the Home Depot. Offer valid June 17th to July 8th. U.S. only. See store online for details.
Game day at my place is kind of a big deal. If I'm grilling, chilling, and watching hoops, my outdoor patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. From patio seating and umbrellas to grills and grilling accessories, Wayfair's got it all, and it shows up fast. I'm talking championship level fast and easy delivery. So level up your grill game and your outdoor chill game and head to wayfair.com now to get your outdoor space ready for the season.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. It is Friday, June 26th here on this beautiful day for the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined as always by Matthew. We're on the same wavelength, Betz.
We are. And I'm excited today, Kyle, because this is going to be a show where we just set the tone for the summer, dude. I mean, Some would say we're already in the swing of summer, but to me, the way that I know summer is really in full swing, and really like the season is right around the corner. You get to July. After the 4th of July, I mean, the ballers go to 3 shows a week. Training camp is here. We are in best shape of his life season. We are in ahead of schedule season. I just cannot wait, man. This is the last show of June. And now it's time to if you haven't been drafting, now is the time to start drafting a lot. I was looking at my current number of drafts on DraftKings for the Millie, which I do plan on maxing this year. And I was only 20 in, and I did the math. I was like, hold on. Whoa, I need to pick it up. So unless I want to be behind the 8 ball in August, I need to start drafting. So I'm excited, man. Today's going to be a good show talking about some ADP movement, how it affects our rankings, if we think the market movement is right or wrong, or what to do about it. So it should be a great show.
I just saw the future of what July looks like for you.
Oh, hit me. What is it?
It's going to be you every single day saying, I'm streaming another draft. Catch me live, on this Facebook event. And you're just drafting your best ball teams. I do think we talk a lot about the different seasons of when you can get certain exposures. And right after the NFL draft, there are certain inefficiencies in the market. We're in the dead period, and yet as we transition to July, we talk about camp news on this. You will see certain risers. So on this episode, we will kind of look over the last month whose prices have changed the most, and what we've done in our own rankings, what we've done in our own exposure rates, and maybe just give you some advice of hey, this player has gone up a full round. Should you keep drafting this player now, or will things change? Will things kind of ebb and flow? I know discussions we've had a lot is about rookie running backs. And, there's one thing where Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price is going, but then there's this group of the Jonah Colemans, Emmett Johnson, Nicholas Singleton, Mike Washington Jr. were hey, after the NFL draft, chill out, because these guys are going to start going up and then they're going to slowly dip over the summer. And they're probably going to slowly dip as we get into July, where the hype of the NFL draft is gone. And then you realize this guy's 3rd or 4th on the depth chart.
For sure. Yeah, that is generally how it goes, immediately after the NFL draft. And part of it is, too, that when you have the pre-NFL draft best ball contest, some of the anchoring kind of happens there where it's this is where the player used to go. And now the post-draft contests are open. And so there's some anchoring to that previous ADP. But at the same time, like you said, we all view these rookies as this is going to hit in the right tail outcome. This is how it will go for us. And you start to talk yourself into that player. And then all of a sudden you get to July and August and you're oh, he's 4th in the rotation at running back. He's not even 3rd right now. We got some issues. And obviously if you're drafting best ball for rookies, you're hoping for the late season upside, but just we will react to those news. People react to the market of what's going on with camp news. And when rookies, generally speaking, aren't first up in reps and running with the ones and all those sort of things, it will fall off. So this is a good reminder for next year, for the year after, for the year after that. If you want rookie exposure, I think in general, the early post NFL draft window is not the time for that. There kind of hits a lull in like July, August, and then you can get the same players at better prices than your opponents.
Best ball is such a funny format. I was just thinking, if you like had all the different fantasy football formats like around the table just having a beer together, it's like, the redraft guy is telling you about, hey, Emma Johnson, like, yeah, you can stash him, but he's like, not that important this year. The dynasty guy is like, hey, I was all in on him and I've known him for a while and, I have him stashed. The best ball guy is like, dude, he's the piece you need. He is the piece that I took on my team among the hundreds of drafts that I took. And so it's like, it's just so funny, like thinking about how best ball, like your attitude about certain players ebbs and flows where either they're a very bad pick, but if they end up on your team, they're a great pick.
This is true. And I do think this is why cost for some of this stuff matters so much, because the bet you're making on a player that might be going in like the 10th round versus a player who could fall 4 to 5 rounds in 16, 17 is so different. Like what you need that player to do at cost obviously is a huge piece of this puzzle. And so people sometimes think, when you're drafting players, is it a big deal if it's like a 1-round difference? I don't know. Probably not. But if you're talking about 2 to 3 to even more, round difference, that cost, risk reward type of situation to me matters a lot. And so there's been a huge movement in the ADP market over the last month. And we'll break that down today.
If you want all of our rankings, you can find them in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus, our best ball rankings for Underdog. I'm in a slow draft right now that I did not mean to make a slow draft last week on this podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. Where can I find the rankings? What can I do and complete my stack? We have all of that in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus, including our best ball primer, which breaks down every single team by ADP, how we're stacking them, the overall team outlook. So you can find that at ultimatedraftkit.com. My quick question for us today is a couple of what-if scenarios. Like that is really what we're doing in best ball. We're drafting as if we're right. And when I draft a team, I'm asking a question, what if this happens with this team? Now, you can play that game with injuries all day, but I'm kind of looking more at the team makeup, and I'm going to give you a couple scenarios bets that if they happened, how should we be drafting? Or what is wrong with the ADP right now in best ball? So the first what-if scenario is just simply this. What if Kyler is back? And I'm going to define back as like a top 8 fantasy quarterback. If he was truly back, what does that mean for best ball?
I would be at 100% exposure at his current cost. Like, obviously joking in hyperbole there, but like, this bucket of QB range, right? Like talking like quarterback 10 to like 18 has kind of been ripe for the picking every year in best ball drafts. Like thinking about the range of where these quarterbacks have gone in previous seasons, if you think about some of the biggest hits we've had, like think about rookie year Jaden Daniels, you think about last year with Drake May, you think about some of these guys that come from this type of the draft window that have the upside, specifically with the rushing mobility, those guys can be huge hits. To me, when I look at Kyler, it's like, man, if he is back, if he is, I would say, maybe, let me ask you this question. Do you think it's possible that he regains the form that we saw early on, with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona? Because if people forget, I mean, those were 23 fantasy points per game, 21 fantasy points per game, like truly difference-making numbers. I don't know that we're getting that back, but you don't have to go back that far for a player averaging over 18 fantasy points per game. In 2024, he was over 17 fantasy points per game. So I do think Kyler is a good bet to beat ADP. The question to me is like, if it clicks, how far do those right tail outcomes go? You know what I mean? Because it's not hard to see it with the scheme and with Justin Jefferson and Addison and the weapons.
I think the overall, like I could see him getting to being QB5 in the crazy outcomes because of how this team operates with pass rate over expectation. Like if you look at the Kevin O'Connell era, it's basically been one of those where they were top 6 every single year. And then last year with some guy named JJ McCarthy, they decided, that didn't really work for us. So that's what's kind of interesting to me is like, they were really low in no huddle. Their pass rate was just at 61%. And yet, let's say it goes up to about 64%. Like, I think you're getting the opportunity and you have the quarterback that can run the no huddle. that I think works in this scenario. It just seems like apart from Justin Jefferson, everyone else is too cheap if Kyler is truly back. And that's how we're kind of drafting. I'm looking at our rankings right now. We have him at 100. I have him at 101st. You have him at 103. He's going at 110th overall. Like I should probably make him 100, so at least I can say he's a top 100 player just on the podcast.
That means everything.
All right, just moved him up.
I have been taking a lot of Jordan Addison, and it's because I think there is plenty of upside with him at his cost. Like you said, if this scenario plays out, if Kyler is a top 10-ish type guy, like obviously Justin Jefferson's going to get his and he's going to be awesome, but Jordan Addison has been in the league for a while. We know what he is. He's a very good receiver. He's a very, very solid number 2. And there's also that contingency upside where it's like, hey, if Jefferson misses time, we're probably going to bump the target share for Jordan Addison. So I've been taking a lot of him. And I was just thinking about what you were saying with J.J. McCarthy this past year and what had previously been the identity of the team with KOC in the years prior. Like they kind of had to go run heavy last year, right? Like they could not drop back, J.J. McCarthy 40 times a game or Carson Wentz 45 times a game or Max Brosmer. Like KOC's hands were kind of tied all year is what it felt like to me. And so when you look at the running back room, Aaron Jones is another year older. Jordan Mason is a replaceable talent. You're not going to build the offense around him. And they draft on day 3 like kind of a undersized, more of a special teamer, pass game specialist in Damon Claymore. And like, I'm a huge fan of following the team's moves. What does that tell you? I think we're going to see more of a pass-happy offense that we've seen recently with Kevin O'Connell. So I like this call as far as Kyler. I've kind of been just like clicking him where it's like, okay, I can see the upside. Now that we talk through it, I think he is one of those guys I'd like to be overweight on.
I checked our rankings on Jordan Addison because I was like, I know I'm ahead of ADP. I'm 7 spots ahead, but you are even further ahead. You're almost a full round. I hope people have a lot of Jordan Addison in their bag because I did this activity where I wanted to see who have we talked about on the main show this year and who have we not. We've talked about Jordan Addison other than like a little bit of legal things one time since January on the main show. He's just like in this no man's land of wide receiver, and same thing in best ball. And yet wide receiver 41, like I still think it's worth buying him at that. And if Kyler is back, then he is too cheap at wide receiver 41.
Yeah, love that.
Okay. My next what if is what if the Steelers throw the ball 600 times? Okay. And I know that might sound like just a random number, but like if you look at Mike McCarthy's final 2 seasons with the Cowboys, 82% and 84% of their passes came with 3 wide receivers on the field. Last year, Arthur Smith did it on 47%. So we're getting this crazy usage of 3 wide receivers on the field. And we know who the top 2 are. We know it's going to be Metcalf and Pittman. And then we're trying to figure out, like, is it Jeremy Bernard? Is he going to be an every down player, kind of mix in the slot with Pittman? I don't know. Like, I'm intrigued by this team. We brought them up as like kind of a gross stack earlier this offseason, but like I'm starting to come around like this team just might throw the ball more than anybody else.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways to think about this. If you just look at Mike McCarthy's tendency, and obviously some of this is because you're playing with Dak Prescott, who you can trust to load up with volume, right? Recently, since 2018, here's where the offense that McCarthy has been part of has ranked in pass attempts. Just raw, not pass rate, just total attempts. 3rd, 8th, 19th. That year, Dak got injured, only played 12 games. 6th, 2nd, and 3rd, and some of those years were when he finished up in Green Bay. So it's like we have a pretty decent sample size, especially recently, of Mike McCarthy preferring to play through the pass. Now, that's Dak in his prime versus a 40-plus-year-old Aaron Rodgers who obviously is not the player he was 10 years ago. So I find myself stuck in this conversation where it's like, I think they would love to load up Aaron Rodgers with volume. The problem is, can you do that now when he's 40-plus years old and it's his final season and all those things? I will say, again, following what we just talked about with the Vikings move, they didn't really invest in running back. They are basically, I think, showing us they want to be more pass heavy. Pittsburgh is certainly showing us that, where it's like they trade for and sign Michael Pittman. Obviously, they have DK Metcalf. They attempted to draft Mekhi Lemon in the 1st round. They settled for Jeremy Bernard in the 2nd round. It's like, I probably, I would say they're more likely to be in the top 10 of pass rate than the bottom half of the league is how I would put it. And so if that happens, even if Rodgers is not the most efficient quarterback, which clearly he's not, like I think there's room for one of or a couple of these guys to kind of pay off and really exceed ADP. and we've talked about this before, like because they are so cheap as far as the Pittsburgh stack, I found myself with a lot of these guys. And it's not like I want to like aggressively target Aaron Rodgers, but it's like, man, Metcalf goes as the latest, excluding Miami, I think wide receiver 1. I think Pity City's a totally fine click. And I've taken some Jeremy Bernard where it's like, okay, I want a rookie for some late season upside. I think they're all good picks, and Pat Freiermuth as well in round 18 to 20 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, so the Vikings, the Steelers, like I'm not drafting every single team saying like I have to have Vikings and Steelers on this team. But if I end up with one of them, I am going to take it probably further than maybe what most people feel comfortable with, because I think the right tail outcomes for both teams, they can pay off at their ADPs. Like DK Metcalf is the first Steeler off the board, and he's going later than any other player who's the first for a team. Like it's just like so late that there's room for him. There's room for multiple players from the offense to go there. So they are undervalued in my opinion. All right, a couple more really quick what ifs. And I was throwing this around. Maybe this is me just being a little bit dark. But what if the top 10 ADPs of running backs are all wrong? And we've mentioned how the ADP landscape has shifted towards being heavily running back. So we have 10 in the top 16 picks. Like, I'm not going to argue or go there like what happens to Gibbs if he does this and he gets too big of a workload, or imagine Bijan missing a game, which he's never done. We're not doing that. But I just start to look down these ADPs and where they're going in their drafts. And I'm really asking myself, like, how many of these are wrong? Because they will be. Like, multiple of them. Like, half of the first round is usually wrong. And I'm trying to point out, like, which one. So in my rankings, I'm reflecting, like, hey, I feel like this is a little off. So a little behind on CMC, little behind on Jonathan Taylor. I'm a little behind on James Cook. And that's where I'm making my bets, but I could easily be wrong. But something's off here.
Yeah, I think the way that I'm thinking through this is, for a couple guys, how repeatable do you think what we've seen is, right? Obviously, McCaffrey coming off an unbelievable season, another year older, so many touches. Like, obviously, you want some exposure, but at the same time, I don't know that I'm going to go all in the way that you encouraged me to do last year. Jonathan Taylor, we forget how good that Colts offense was. We forget how good Jonathan Taylor, he would have won Offensive Player of the Year if Daniel Jones probably didn't, tear his Achilles. Like, he was just unbelievable last year. So I don't want to necessarily full fade, but it's just hard to see the Colts repeating that level of success, especially given, no Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce is coming off an ankle injury. Daniel Jones is coming off an Achilles injury. I talked about last year, like, I think the Colts might be better than people think. Now I'm the other way, where it's like everybody thinks the Colts are going to be good. We just saw maybe the best outcome we'll see in the Shane Steichen era from the offense. I'm more hesitant there. So those two for me, I don't want none of, but I'm just a little hesitant. And then I would say further down, we've talked a lot about Saquon. It should surprise nobody if he's finishing in the top 5 this year. So I love the Saquon bet at cost. The other one for me that's a little weary is Devon Achane. Again, I don't want none of this player because he's ultra, ultra talented. But if you're playing on Underdog where it's half PPR, we're going from Mike McDaniel, who schemes so many targets to his running backs, to and Tua, who they refuse to let get hit because of the concussion stuff, get the ball out as quickly as possible, to a more ground-based attack with Malik Willis, who is mobile and will therefore reduce the number of targets likely to the running back position because of the scramble rate and all those things. So it's like, man, I don't want none of Devon Achane. He's so explosive. He can rip off a 40-yard touchdown at the blink of an eye, right? Of course. But the market is saying this team is going to be bad. It's hard to paint a positive picture for a touchdown-heavy site that, like, you can't replace that production somewhere else. Again, don't want none, but I certainly will have less than the market on Devon Achane. So I would say for me, the big three in that bucket that I'm hesitant on are Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, and Devon Achane.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the ADP and comparing that to my rankings. Like, I'm just a spot behind on CMC, so I'm fine. I'm fine with CMC, but I'm not pounding the table like we were last year. Taylor 4 spots behind. Genty is fine. And I'm fine with Hampton and Walker, the end of the first round, kind of that 1-2 turn. But Achane, I'm 2 spots. Cook, I'm 5 spots. It's just, I'm going to have different builds. And maybe that's a game theory thing that in these big tournaments, if this is where the ADP has landed, I'm going to shift just a little bit to get some different combinations than other people, especially at the running back position. So it's one of those things that, you look at ADPs long enough, you look at rankings long enough, you're like, what's off here? What is it? What I need to sniff something here that is different and that should change. So maybe I've also gotten to the point where I'm overanalyzing.
No, I think you're really good at this where you always, like, you're so critical, your thinking is critical, of trying to poke holes in stuff and trying to find the angles in certain things that I do think, and we get to a certain point where it's like groupthink, right? Everybody drafts the same way. You got to have running backs early. We did it for 3 years straight where it's like you got to have all the wide receivers early, otherwise you're not going to win. And now everybody's thinking you got to have running backs early, you're not going to win. I think it's such a good year to go light running back early. And not all your teams should be that, but it's just like, if you're trying to win $1 million, if you're trying to like win these huge tournaments, you can't necessarily always be doing the same thing as everybody else. You have to differentiate some way. And so just with the running back health last year, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple busts in this range.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll get right into our ADP price check.
Okay, imagine this. A honeybee is out here doing her thing in an orchard, lands on a mystery apple blossom, then carries that pollen over to a Honeycrisp tree. Fast forward a few months, and no exaggeration, something amazing is born. The Sugar Bee apple. Packed with notes of honey, caramel, and molasses, plus an extra crisp crunch, Sugar Bee apples are perfect for snacking, baking, and everything in between. Download our new free recipe book and find a store near you at hellosugarbee.com. Sugar Bee apples, naturally sweet, from bee to you.
Game day at my place is kind of a big deal. If I'm grilling, chilling, and watching hoops, my outdoor patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. From patio seating and umbrellas to grills and grilling accessories, Wayfair's got it all, and it shows up fast. I'm talking championship level fast and easy delivery. So level up your grill game and your outdoor chill game and head to wayfair.com now to get your outdoor space ready for the season.
All right, Betsy and I are going to look through which players have changed the most on Underdog ADP over the last month. So let's get into it.
You better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Check yourself. Got to get checked out every once in a while, Betz. That's what the doctor says.
Once a year?
There you go. We'll first start with the biggest risers over the last month. I thought about going all the way back to early May, but if you've been drafting over the last month, this is kind of the landscape that I want to work with. So this is basically since mid to late May to where we are right now at the end of June. We'll go through the risers, we'll go through the fallers, and then after that, you and I will talk about a couple different categories related to ADP and where we are buying certain players. So let's start off with the biggest risers at the running back position. I'm not even going to mention quarterbacks, by the way, because their ADP rarely shifts because it's either based on where somebody is being drafted in like a stacking partner, like that's what shifts the ADP, or like a major injury. And so really there's been not much ADP movement of quarterbacks. There's like, 3 or 4 picks. But at running back, the biggest movers that have moved over a round the last month have been Sean Tucker at almost 20 picks, Jonathan Brooks, 17 picks, and Rachaad White, who has gone almost 13 picks higher. Which of those guys do you want to highlight first?
I think the Jonathan Brooks discussion is fascinating. I think they're all worthy of just kind of chatting through. Maybe more so Brooks and Rachaad White since their prices are up. Sean Tucker is still in a range where the difference for me between around late 16th and 19th pick, those guys are all the same bet, basically.
Tucker was so last year, man.
And last year was the year.
It was awesome.
But I do have some Tucker this year. So let's start with Jonathan Brooks. Up 17 spots and continuing to rise. Like, it would not surprise me if we get to July and let's say the reports continue to be positive, that he's in the 90 to 95th overall ADP mark. So where are you at now? Are you trying to get exposure before it keeps going up? Are you kind of just letting others chase him? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I have some Brooks in my bag, and thinking about the overall team structure, Rico Dowdle vacates 51% of the carries, 10% of the team's targets. And the weird part about Chuba is we remember how good he was 2 years ago, and then how he's basically just phased out of the offense last year. But Chuba last year was not the goal line back. He had 1 carry inside the 5. That was a Rico role. So that that role in itself, you could either say goes back to Chuba. I would argue it's just up in the air. So for this team, we're trying to figure out like who has the most valuable role for fantasy. And it's not like it should be Chuba. That's how we could project it. But I think there's room for somebody else to grow into it. And you and I were pretty bullish on Jonathan Brooks a couple years ago. I hate saying that now, but a couple years ago when he was coming out of Texas. So I like the role. I like the offensive line that they've invested so much in it. So there's enough there where like at cost, he's going still outside the top 100 picks that I think it's fine at RB37. Like the other guys in this range are, we'll talk about Rachaad White, but it's a bunch of dudes that are in committee roles already, like Jordan Mason, Chris Rodriguez, Tyrone Tracy, like Blake Corum, like guys that are the exact same archetype. So it doesn't bother me that he's risen this much.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I'm still well behind ADP, and like I've taken some Brooks mostly early on, actually, before this kind of crazy run has started, and I don't have that much exposure. So the question for me is like, do I want to just bite the bullet and say, hey, this is the price now, like, take it or leave it, you're not going to get a better price? Because that's how I feel. Do you agree that his price will only continue to go up?
Yes, because I think about, and this sounds silly, but like best ball influences redraft. We know that. But then there's this other cyclical part where redraft hype can also influence best ball. And when that happens is the kind of carryover. So you might think of that as like the casuals, once the casuals start drafting in best ball. But it's not just that. It's just like any single person that's paying attention to fantasy football in August. I bet Jonathan Brooks will be on so many different sleeper lists. Like Andy had him listed on a sleeper show we did. I'm looking at this right now. June 9th. So we get credit, right?
Obviously, yeah.
We get credit
for sure
for bringing that up. But like that's when the ADP is going to rise. And so at that point, I'm willing to kind of slow my roll. But we're still in this point right now where it's in the dead of summer where I'm totally fine of him going right outside the top 100. I have him at 108 and he's going 105th overall. So I'm a little behind ADP now, but I still think I'm okay with where he's going.
I think we both agree if you want to get more Brooks, now is the time you have to do it, because to me, if he does get into a round 8, round 7 cost, if it gets crazy in August, I think he's a bad bet at that point, if I'm being quite honest. Like, not just from how good is this guy in the NFL, period, from the health and all those sort of things, but just going back to the Panthers last year, they kind of surprised people, right? Like they had the right to outcome already happen. I'm not a believer in that being repeatable, quite honestly, and we talked about that at the win totals episode. Like, I still think this is going to be at best, 500 football team. Do you think you're getting a league-winning player on a team that probably won't score that many touchdowns with Bryce Young as the quarterback? I don't think so personally. So that's why I'm saying, like, I think he's an okay bet right now. I don't think he's a great bet. I think he's an okay bet, but I think there's a chance that in August he could be a bad bet if the ADP continues to get out of control.
I'm behind on Chuba Hubbard, so maybe that's just kind of how I played it out, that he'll get phased out of the offense, or I don't think he's a great pick at his cost. But yeah, it's difficult when we are just totally guessing on this player on vibes alone.
For sure. And everything right now in OTAs and minicamp and stuff was like, he looks good, it's fast. It's like nobody's tackling, nobody's doing anything out there.
Also,
like,
you've never seen this player play, really. Like,
right, it's like
he looks really good compared to the crutches.
Right. So I'm pumping the brakes. Like I'm cool with it where it's now. I think it's okay, but again, in August, I could be just completely out.
All right, let's talk about Rachaad White, who is a Commander now. If you didn't know, he's 27 years old. And if you go on our website, this is really top-notch stuff. He's labeled as Richard Dick.
Dick White?
So, yep. So make sure you check out the website. That's really good stuff. It's more of a bet on a player who's never looked very efficient. Like, I think we've always poked holes in that. And yet I remember in DFS, it's like, man, Rachaad White's going to see 18 opportunities. We're going to play him at, 6,200 or whatever it was on DraftKings. And the backfield feels kind of open here. So he's another player that's kind of hanging out right around Brooks, like right outside the top 100. Do you feel comfortable with where he's going now? It's 111. Like, we're also still guessing on this backfield as well.
Yeah, this is one of those that, like, we want to attack ambiguous situations, right? Obviously, this is where league-winning potential comes from. We've done this just recently, last year, right, with Javonte Williams was an ambiguous backfield, huge hit. Travis Etienne, huge hit last year. I think there's a chance Washington could produce one of those backs because I think the offense can return to being a top half of the league offense. I do not think that is possible with the Panthers personally. So as far as like bets on the offense type of situation, I kind of want just a little bit of JCM. I want a little bit of Rachaad White. I want some Kaytron Allen late just in case we get the hit. But at the same time, we also need to remember, like, it's totally possible this is a full committee all year and that none of these guys are like huge league winning upside picks. So I view Rachaad White as a what does your team need? Like if you're taking, wide receiver early and you need to just kind of put together some usable weeks in the double digit rounds, I think Rachaad White is the most likely commander in the backfield to have a role all year. Doesn't mean he won't have like the best fantasy role, but I think he'll have the pass catching role, assuming health, without question. Like I don't think that's going to be JCM. Probably not going to be Kaytron Allen. So he'll have a role. How big can that role be? I don't really know. We at least have seen him in the NFL command touches, right? He's done it in the past. It's been inefficient, but he can command touches. So I think he's got a good chance to be a win rate type guy and be okay. But I'm really more targeting him if I go wide receiver early and I need running back, or if it's part of the Jaden Daniels team.
Yeah, I think it's the Washington stack part that I'm most excited about. Their first 6 games, their game totals are at 48.7. So we do think there'll be some high scoring moments. I love also that you failed to mention Uncle Jerome Ford on the team, man.
Does he make the team?
I don't think so. He has less than 500,000 guaranteed, and it's probably not going to work. So Rachaad White is fine, but if he keeps rising, I just think it's not a great bet.
I think part of the rise for him too is also Bill was missing time with a hamstring issue.
Bill, I don't even have a Bill drop. He's so irrelevant now, He was so last season.
The summer of Bill last year, who could forget August? What a time to be alive.
All right, 2 more running backs I just want to briefly mention. Kenneth Gainwell, who is in that same grouping, and then Keaton Mitchell is now going around pick 135, the Chargers running back Keaton Mitchell. Why do you think Mitchell has been a riser, and have you been buying?
Not really. I think he's fine. Again, like you definitely needed a Marion Hampton injury to like have this be a player that you needed this year in best ball. I think there's a chance he could have a usable role in the offense, but I think it's just Chargers hype period. Like Quentin Johnson is up an unbelievable amount. Keaton Mitchell is up. Everybody that you hear online or on Twitter or whatever is talking about this offense with Mike McDaniel and Justin Herbert, and I love it. I agree. I'm in. But the rise is Chargers just generally, I think. So I think he's fine.
Okay. I've had Kenneth Gainwell a little bit ahead of ADP for a while, and I just think he's such an easy click for me because I just like the offense and the backfield in general is probably going to ebb and flow. It's going to have some weeks where there's 3 dudes, but I feel like his role still feels like the most secure of like, you seem like to be a trusted red zone back. Bucky wasn't trusted as a red zone back. And you have the skill set that even at this age and getting a free agent contract that you can be meaningful. So I've had a lot of Bucks this year and I've had a lot of Gainwell.
I have a tough time with Gainwell because we just talked about the Washington thing where it's like, there's a chance there's all 3 of these guys contributing. You hope you pick the right one. With Tampa, assuming health for all 3, and obviously injuries happen, but like assuming health, I think we all agree this will be a 3-headed committee. Sean Tucker will get some looks at the goal line. Bucky Irving will be in there in between the 20s potentially. Kenneth Gainwell will have a role in the pass game. And it's like, you just think about what happened last year. This is a player who in his career has seen 50, 29, 37, 22, and then 85 targets. Okay, it's pretty easy to spot the outlier. 68 rush attempts, 53, 84, 75, 114. It's pretty easy to spot the outlier. Entering year 6 in the league, I have a tough time believing there's more meat on the bone for a player like this who got a huge bump because of Aaron Rodgers. Could he have usable weeks? Sure. Are you going to get a league-winning type pick at this range? For me, I think the answer is I'm betting against that. It's just hard to see that getting better in year 6 for a player that has always had a very specific role in the NFL. Yes, the Bucs paid him money. I get that. But it's like, man, we just talked through Sean Tucker and Bucky's not going away. And it's like, I just have a tough time seeing this be the guy you need. So I'm actually pretty far behind ADP on Kenneth Gainwell.
See, I look at some of the other players that have his same skill set, like RJ Harvey. I think they're very similar, like comp players in terms of pass catching ability. They can be explosive. They also, if they need to, can handle 15 carries. But like, you're paying so much more for that type of player in a committee. Where
You think Kenneth Gainwell can handle 15 carries?
I think he can.
Who could forget London? Remember that game?
I have no memory.
Oh, dude, it was like the last second scratch on Bucky. And Kenny G was incredible last year. He had like 20 opportunities. I'm going to look it up. Week 4, 25 opportunities, 19 carries in that game. Finished the week as the RB4.
I don't mind the price of his skill set at RB36. I just look at some of the dudes. This is the bet that right now in ADP people are making ahead of him with running backs. J.K. Dobbins, okay, so another player in a committee. Yeah, he'll get some touchdowns, and most people think he's going to get injured. Kyle Monangai. Who could forget me drafting Kyle Monangai last week and hating myself for it? Blake Corum, RJ Harvey, like Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, like all of those guys going ahead of him, I feel like are fine, but like I wouldn't say they're like massively better than Kenneth Gainwell, who's going outside the top 100.
He goes in the 90s all the time in the drafts I'm in, so I think this ADP is just kind of lagging behind a little bit here.
So you think he'll be a top 100 player soon?
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to wide receiver, because the biggest riser over the last month, I did not know this. I was like, whoa, is Adonai Mitchell, who is now going 30 spots ahead in ADP. I did see some reports a couple weeks ago where it's like Adonai Mitchell looks locked in at the number 2 role. And what's crazy is if you look at rookie year Adonai Mitchell, you're like, okay, he's exactly who we thought he was. And then for the first half of the year, he was irrelevant on the Colts, gets traded to the Jets, Garrett Wilson's out, and now he's targeted like on a crazy amount of his routes. So, Adonai Mitchell, does he even matter at all at around pick 180?
So, again, pick 180 versus 200, irrelevant to me. These are all the same dart throw type of player, right? I think some are better darts than others, and I think AD Mitchell is a pretty good dart for usable scores. We do need to remember last year, like you said, all that production was with a different quarterback, a different OC, no Garrett Wilson, just different team, right? And so I find myself like wanting to take some of him where I need wide receiver late. But if this hype continues into like early training camp, because on social media, they're putting out AD Mitchell highlights and he looks great without pads on, all that sort of stuff. Like if he gets up into the 13th, 14th round, it's like, okay, I don't know that I want to keep chasing this. I've taken a decent amount of him actually already. And so he'll be a player that I'll probably just continue to get my exposure on right now and likely cool off as we get closer to August. And at the same time, I haven't taken a ton of Omar Cooper Jr. yet. I don't know what your thoughts are on him. But if they happen to be flipping an ADP, I'm very happy to just kind of even out those bets and take some Omar Cooper as we get closer to August.
I mean, I get, but I'm not banking that this player has anything to do with what he was doing last year. I am agreeing with you. So
AD?
he's
Cooper?
just in this group of like wide receiver threes that I think, I think over the course of the season, he will have 2 to 3 spike weeks where it's like, okay, this is helpful and I can't predict those. And hopefully they're occurring at the right time as your wide receiver 8 on your team or something.
For sure. And if you're getting 3 spike weeks out of a round 18 pick, that's unbelievable.
But
if
he's
you get
not
him
18
in
anymore.
Round, that's what I'm saying. If he's now a 12th round pick and we get to mid to late August, you need more than that. And so that's why I have a tough time with the new price on him, because kind of like other guys we've already discussed, I don't think this hype is slowing down.
All right. Well, I do have a fun fact for you on another player that's risen.
Okay.
And this one I got curious because I wanted to see how far this goes back. There's only one wide receiver that has risen this much since May 1st, and his name is Zachariah Branch.
Because of your pick last week, that single-handedly is moving
changed the ADP. I was
moving the lines.
Whoops.
I was moving it, brother. No, Zachariah Branch was going around pick 200, and now he's about 175. Jokes aside, we're just looking for players and routes and snaps, and his skill set, I think, is going to be on the field. So I'm totally fine with him being a top 175, 170 pick.
Where would you stop drafting him?
Well, let's look at my rankings and see where I have him, which is, probably right around there. Let's be honest. I have him at 174. So I basically like, there are some curious wide receivers, and a lot of them are rookies in this range. When you go to Antonio Williams is ahead of him, Jeremy Bernard, those are better bets in my opinion than him. But like Deebo Samuel, no idea where to rank him. If you know how to rank Deebo Samuel, congratulations, because nobody knows exactly what to do with him. Jerry Jeudy, like these are players that I'm going to probably have Zachariah Branch ahead of.
If he gets, I'm trying to draw the line. If he gets up to the Denzel Boston range, who's currently going 157.
The classic Denzel Boston line.
Classic. I'm probably out. Which that's another like 15 spots on ADP. So I don't think it's going to happen obviously like tomorrow or anything, but just over the next month, like kind of, I would say be wary of the cost.
All right. What about Ryan Flanoy, who is a Cowboy, and his ADP is basically correlated to, a lot of George Pickens speculation. Is he going to sign or not? Do you care at all?
There's also been a decent amount of hype from Schottenheimer on him, just talking about growing as a player and all that sort of stuff. A lot of the film guys out there think this guy can play. What do I know? To me, it's just like, just take a step back and think about what he needs to do. You probably need one of CD or Pickens to miss time, which if you're taking a contingency bet at wide receiver, like you want to have multiple outs, not just one. So there's multiple outs, so I get it. Or you need Dak to like be the quarterback one this year, support 3 wide receivers and just be incredible, which that could happen. So I don't hate it. It's just like, man, I don't know if you have this data, Kyle, in front of you, or maybe we can look it up for a future episode. It's like the wide receiver 3 for a team that is going higher and higher and higher. Like how often does that hit? And I'm not saying the ambiguous situations, because obviously Dallas, we know it's CD and it's George Pickens. But like the Jags, like we don't know, so they're all going early. But like, it just seems sketchy.
Yeah, apart from an injury, which you can't project, it feels like something that doesn't make a ton of sense. Because offenses usually can't support that many options. Javonte saw 50-plus targets. Turd Ferguson saw, 90 targets. So to find then another spot for another wide receiver, it probably doesn't make much sense. I'm behind on ADP, and so are you at this point. So I'll probably let other people have at it. I do think the tight end ones is a good little discussion here, because Greg D, our buddy Greg Dulcich, who we've always loved, has risen 25 spots in ADP. Is that people looking at the Dolphins depth chart for the very first time and going, well, I guess it's got to go somewhere?
And just the headline, right, of Greg Dulcich has the most chemistry with Malik Willis in June. He seems to have the best connection. Okay. I don't know, man.
They went to bowling or Topgolf together. And
you think we have another Topgolf on our hands?
I don't see Greg doing that. Like I could see Greg at the club though.
Greg and Malik in South Beach at the club. Hey man, Greg D. Dude's awesome. Week 10 on last year, he did see a 13.7% target share, but the efficiency was very good. 2.83 yards per route run. It was only 100 routes. So I don't know. That was with Mike McDaniel in a different scheme. You could talk yourself into it because his cost is so cheap. But at the same time, it's like he's the same bet as every other tight end in this range. So if people are so excited about Greg Dulcich being the guy you needed in the 17th round, it's like I'm happy just to spread out my exposure here and kind of even my bets.
Yeah, we have a question a little bit later on in the show where we're going to ask about late round tight ends, and he might be the answer. Spoiler alert. And the last little riser I need to mention here is Chig Okonkwo, who's up 6 spots. And then I checked again today. There was a couple of quotes. Just that Chig says he's going to be unleashed in this offense. So, are you buying in at Chig at cost? Do you feel like, hey, his upside's not baked enough? Because we've talked to a lot of Commanders, which is a team that I feel like is off the radar for some people. But Chig's going at 146, tight end 17 overall. Like I like the price, and I've always loved the player.
Yeah, he's tough because this is a player that is now on a second contract, has never averaged more than 4.6 targets per game.
Stop.
He's been roughly a 50% route share guy. In the UDK, we're projecting him for less than 60 catches and less than 600 yards. So again, in my opinion, he is kind of the same bet as every other tight end that's going like tight end 15 to tight end 30. He's fine. I've taken some of him with Jaden Daniels stacks. The problem is I don't want to keep chasing him up if we anticipate the Commanders being the Steph Diggs team. There's the Brandon Ayuk thing. I don't think Keenan is crazy to like if they are like, Ben Jefferson was in the headlines the other day as like he's really showing out in minicamp.
That's a problem.
So I think the Commanders know that they're thin at wide receiver. And if they sign one of these vets, then naturally, just game theory wise, Chig's price will come back down.
Yep.
So I've taken a little bit of him. I'm not going to keep chasing him up. And if they do sign a veteran, his price will come back down. Maybe I'll take some more of him again. So I'm not overly enthusiastic where he goes.
That is good analysis. I will agree with you. And it stinks when there's things that you can't really foresee or like pinpoint this is the veteran wide receiver, but they will add a veteran wide receiver to that room at some point. We'll see. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay, imagine this. A honeybee is out here doing her thing in an orchard, lands on a mystery apple blossom, then carries that pollen over to a Honeycrisp tree. Fast forward a few months, and no exaggeration, something amazing is born. The Sugar Bee Apple. Packed with notes of honey, caramel, and molasses, plus an extra crisp crunch, Sugar Bee apples are perfect for snacking, baking, and everything in between. Download our new free recipe book and find a store near you at hellosugarbee.com. Sugar Bee apples, naturally sweet, from bee to you.
When you're a maintenance engineer in a beverage manufacturing plant, you keep production lines moving and quality on track because there's no room for slowdowns. With Grainger's vast selection of high-quality motors, sensors, belts, and hard-to-find parts, you can get what you need fast and all in one place, so nothing gets in the way of getting the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right, let's talk about the biggest fallers in ADP over the last month in best ball. There's a big difference between a player rising and a player falling. There's just many different factors. A lot of times it's injury or, team situation. But at quarterback, we do have one that I want to talk about. It's Tyler Shuck, which I feel like Tyler Shuck should be a name that people are excited about with upside. I know Mike has talked about him a ton on the main show as like, we have rushing upside. This is a team that invested in their offensive weapons. So why would he fall 8 spots?
I wonder if this is just because of the Chris Olave being limited. Like, he's not off blood thinners yet from his lung issue last year. So on DraftKings, Chris Olave has a Q tag. Jordan Addison as well. I know we're talking underdog here, but Jordan Addison also carries a Q tag over on DK. And just the vibes on that, because the reporting has been, we're limiting him in minicamp, or limiting him in rookie minicamp, just trying to kind of manage this thing until we get to training camp, because this is a guy who's coming off a soft tissue injury. So he did not have a new injury. They have a plan around it, is what I would say. So I think sometimes when you see that with the pass catchers, naturally the quarterback kind of falls a little bit too. But I'm not sure otherwise why the cost would be falling. But I'm happy to take more Tyler Shuck. I've already taken so much that at this point the bags are packed.
It's so weird because Olave's ADP has actually risen over the last 20 days.
Oh, has it really?
Yeah. So I don't understand. I mean, part of the dynamics of just how the board falls and other players, like there's multiple factors, not just one thing, but he just feels like one of those guys that you and I have talked about a lot. Is like, I'm willing to bet on a rushing quarterback that I can get this late around, QB 20 pricing. Same thing with Malik Willis. He's one of the few guys going late that I'm like, I mean, it's not as late as what we could have been getting him in the past when we're paying QB 20 prices, but I have some Tyler Shuck.
Yep.
All right, running back, it's Chris Rodriguez. He is one of the biggest fallers. I know that's injury related. Josh Jacobs, that has to be legal issues. And then we have the rookie running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Emmett Johnson, have fallen basically a full round. And we kind of knew that was going to be part of it. But any thoughts you have related to these running backs?
Not really. Yeah, I mean,
they all make sense.
It makes sense, yeah. And I've taken some Josh Jacobs with the fall. I would say always, I'm more willing to kind of buy the dip, because in order to have a team that's awesome for best ball and really hits and potentially is one of the ones that can rise to the top of the board, you really have to hit on all these early picks, right? Like you have to have a very, very good team. Josh Jacobs, without legal issues, is priced as an early round 3 pick. So now you're getting him with that stuff baked in as a 4th round pick, sometimes late 4th, early 5th in the best case scenario. And if he gets cleared of this stuff, which who knows, but if he gets cleared, like that's a pretty good pick because it's not like he's being docked for injury or anything like that. So I've taken some of him when he's fallen. I don't want to get crazy exposure just because the rug could get pulled with a suspension or something, but you draft as if you're right? And if this gets cleared, I think he's a good pick. Especially considering running back prices are all pushed up.
Yes. I totally agree with that. At wide receiver, I mean, there's some names that Tyreek is basically undrafted now. Brandon Ayuk, we want to touch on that, like that's its own situation where we're not really talking about football. We're talking about off the field stuff. So how are you handling Brandon Ayuk, a player that we really haven't seen play meaningful football, that has basically done more off the field recently? Even a Shefty report that came out today was like, man, he's definitely there's some teams I don't want this guy to keep talking anymore. But I mean, he's going to end up being round 17, round 18 pick.
Brandon, I know you're listening. Go inside, delete social media, and stop talking. I think he's hurting his cause, man. I think every time he does something that's on his YouTube, on Instagram, whatever, teams are going to keep seeing this and be like, this is a pretty immature guy. Do we want this in our building? And the game that we're playing when we're trying to analyze this stuff from 30,000 feet away, what do we know? But just from the outside looking in, it's not a good look. And so, look, every year there's one player, Kyle. And if he beats me, he beats me. Brandon Ayuk might be that guy this year. Admittedly, I've taken a couple shares with Jaden Daniels where it's okay, if he is a commander, sure, let's predict the stack. But I'm not going out there in every draft and taking him in round 16, 17, 18. I know other people are super excited about Brandon Ayuk because of the theoretical upside, but we were talking pre-show and you were like, what year was that? Well, when was that year that he was highly efficient and, was a huge player that you needed? And you were like, oh, 2023. It's 2026. It's been 3 years since we've seen Brandon Ayuk be good at football. So who knows where his conditioning is at? Who knows where his health is at? Who knows where his mind is at? Those are players generally I'm willing to let others chase up, and he is on the rise. He was on the fall, now he's on the rise. He's a scary, scary click if he keeps getting more expensive.
Yeah, one of the things that is not great in fantasy football prognostication statistics is we love to make connections and hold on to anything we can think in our brain. So Brandon Ayuk going to the Commanders, the first thing that's going to show up is, wait, he played together with Jaden Daniels in college at Arizona State. Therefore, they already have a connection. That was so long ago when that happened. That was such a, was 2019 was that team, I believe. It's we're grasping at anything that can tell us a player can be relevant who hasn't been relevant for a couple of years, that has off the field stuff. And you look at the price now, so I understand. If it's round 18, you want to take a shot in a large tournament, I'm totally fine with. Brandon Ayuk in a sit and go is not a player I will be taking.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also want to caution people that think that this trade or release or whatever could happen. Watch it happen tomorrow. Think that's going to happen soon. I think the way that this is played out, the Niners can just keep him on the squad, fine him for not showing up because he's under contract, and just basically be like, we're waiting until the season starts. And if this gets to late August, heaven forbid early September, before he has to be released and then re-signed, the train has already left the station. You know what I mean? It's hard to just not have multiple training camps, not have OTAs, not have a full summer to learn the playbook and hit the ground running and be a guy that's going to contribute. So again, right now, if you want to mix him in, I get it. If he keeps coming up, which he's kind of on the rise recently, that's a no for me.
All right, let's go to tight end, because the player that has fallen the most in ADP is David Njoku, Chargers tight end. I need to make sure I share that. And of all the Chargers love that I've been seeing, reading, absorbing myself, wearing right now, I'm wearing a Chargers shirt. I feel like I haven't heard a lot of David Njoku stuff. And then some of the reports that I've read is it's also possible this player is just washed. So I haven't been taking much David Njoku.
Yeah, it's if you get boxed out at tight end and you kind of need a tight end 3, on DraftKings in the 20th round and it's a Justin Herbert team, which for me is a very specific scenario, I'm cool with a share or two. Largely, I'm not taking him. I think it's interesting, like in today's NFL where everything is about multiple tight end sets and you need multiple tight ends, and Nate Borkature is going to win MVP for the Jags this year. It's like David Njoku didn't sign until almost Memorial Day, got $850,000 guaranteed, and was kind of an afterthought in the free agency market, and lost his job to a not late pick, but later round rookie in Harold Fannin last year. This is a player whose yards per route run has dropped in 3 straight seasons, coming off 1.06 a year ago. There's some not so great signs with Njoku, and I think people obviously are talking about Rondé Gadsden. We also need to remember Charlie Kolar is here, and he's going to play plenty of snaps. So I just don't know how many routes you're getting from David Njoku. So for me, again, like if you absolutely need a third tight end and it correlates with your team, sure, but I'm not taking more than a couple shares.
Harold Fannin's dropped about 9 picks. Part of that's his own little injury. Part of it is just the general Brown stank of the team. Kenyon Sadiq is a name that I want to bring up because he's fallen 8 spots. And you talked earlier about there being this range of tight end that feels all the same. Do you feel like he's one of the few guys that does have upside there that you're willing to take at this cost?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we think about rookie upside, it's like I didn't think Sadiq was an incredible prospect, but the NFL all spring was telling us how incredible this prospect was. At his cost, if it continues to keep going down, you don't need him to be a huge player for your team early on. He can be a late season guy. So I actually have taken more Sadiq than I realized, just because he's one of those guys who's always available after ADP.
Yep, we're both ahead on ADP. So I think this is the point where I don't mind grabbing up Sadiq. And I bet there will be some highlights that show up in a couple of weeks that does move his ADP back up.
And I like pairing him with Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, one of those like kind of stable, boring bets. You're like, I need some juice in this room. Give me the first round rookie.
Like it's just like a personality thing. Like you need a young buck in there.
Yeah, to balance out with the olds. And
then you take Kate Otten at the end just to make sure you have a glue guy.
That's right. You always got to get a glue guy in your tight end room.
You got to have that. All right, let's finish up this episode. I'm going to ask a couple of quick questions about ADP, and I want you to just give me your gut reaction. Which of these ADPs, this first one, do not bake in the upside case enough for these players? These are wide receivers all going around wide receiver 40. Is it Jordan Addison, who we talked about earlier, Josh Downs, or Michael Wilson? So which ones doesn't bake in the upside case? Or maybe another way to ask this is, who has the highest ceiling in your mind?
My heart wants to say Josh Downs.
Mine does too.
Because we haven't seen him unleashed in a full-time role, and we think it could happen this year. So that's what I would like to say. My truthful answer is probably Jordan Addison, just if the Vikings are better than people realize and Kyler can bounce back. But I have a tough time with Michael Wilson, so anybody with him.
It's so funny because he is the one that we've seen fly the highest.
Yes, he has.
Yeah, I think with Downs, you're going to see an expansion in the role, and yet like the ceiling still feels like wide receiver 20.
If you get that at wide receiver 43,
yeah,
you're doing cartwheels.
Yeah, I think we're more bullish on Addison and bullish on the Vikings as a stack with Kyler, and so that's probably why our answer goes there. All right, next question. Which of these running back ADPs scare you the most? These are Kyron at running back 16, Javonte running back 17, Josh Jacobs running back 18. So veteran running backs all kind of going in the same range around the 3-4 turn.
I would say, and I know I talked about Josh Jacobs being a pretty good pick earlier on. If you're just using kind of like predictive look-ahead lines, betting markets, the Rams are projected for a ton of points. The Cowboys are projected for a ton of points, and the Packers are third on that list if we're comparing these three teams. So I would say, for me, it's Jacobs, but they all feel like a very similar bet, if I'm being honest.
Like with Jacobs, the backfield competition feels like the least here to me. Like I'm not scared. I mean, I know I'd talk about Marshawn Lloyd, but I'm not really.
I mean, Javonte has none either.
Right. I think that they will involve at least somebody more than they did last year. I think he saw an insane workload, and I know they just paid him. I think Javonte is just the scariest bet for me.
Makes sense.
He's a super inefficient pass catcher. Kyron is just Kyron's one of those players that every single year you're like, not a sexy pick. And then you get 12 touchdowns and you're like, I should have picked Kyron. So I think Javonte's the one that I'm most scared of, and Jacobs I'm now fine with the ADP.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
All right. I alluded to this earlier. Which tight end going past pick 170 is going to be a win rate special in 2026? So I'm going to give you a list here, and you're going to just give me the magical answer. Going past pick 170 is AJ Barner, Gunnar Helm, Greg Dulcich, Cade Otton, Pat Freiermuth, Eli Stowers, and Terrence Ferguson.
I'm going to go with Terrence Ferguson as my answer. It takes a leap of faith, but think about the quarterbacks for all those teams. Stafford clearly is the best. In weeks 14 to 17 last year, we saw it start to kind of happen for Ferguson. 64% of the snaps, 78, 76, then gets injured in week 17, only plays half the snaps. In those games, the routes were 29, 35, and then eventually bottomed out because of the hamstring injury. And then we get to the playoffs, and he's not healthy for the playoffs. So we were kind of seeing the late season breakout kind of happen from a playing time standpoint. Then it got curtailed because of a hamstring, and you're not going to trust a rookie off a hamstring injury for a huge role in a playoff game. So long way to say, I think there was signs that Ferguson was starting to eat into Colby Parkinson, obviously Tyler Higbee. I think there's a chance that T. Ferg's role is way bigger than we're projecting right now, if some of that stuff from last year was potentially predictive. And if we think Devontae might see a few less end zone targets, I think Ferguson can eat some of those up. So I think he's one of those guys, if you just look back and you're like, he had 500 yards and 6 touchdowns at this cost. That works.
Yeah, such a hard player for me to project on a team that has, 5 tight ends? Like 5 tight ends that we know the names and we've seen them play at some point.
Higbee got completely phased out. Max Clare's not going to play that much this year. Like, I'm kind of into T. Ferg.
Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen.
Davis is doing nothing in the pass game.
Dude, don't disrespect Davis Allen, man. So the thing about Ferguson is 50% of his targets were 20-plus yards down the field. So big plays is what we want. It was super, inefficient. And so let's say he does hit on a couple of those this next year. I do agree with you. I like him as my tight end 3, as a little nitro boost in where you're getting him there. I think I feel more comfortable with I'm fine with Greg D as my tight end 2 if I have an elite. If I have a Bowers or somebody like that.
Whenever you have a chance to get the Dolphins wide receiver 1, you have to do it with Greg Dulcich.
Last question here is, which quarterback is the most mispriced in 2026?
Are you saying most too expensive or too cheap?
You tell me.
I have a couple answers that you all know I love Cam Ward. We like Tyler Shuck. I think they're fine answers. Jaden Daniels, right? Could be quarterback 1 this year. I think Malik Willis has a chance to be one of those guys that we're we really let Malik Willis go off the board at quarterback 21 if the rushing upside hits. Shout out to Ian Harditz on Twitter, said since 2014, there have been 34 quarterbacks with 100-plus rush attempts in a season, and 31 have finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback in points per game. Looked at the UDK. 109 rush attempts is our projection. If he can give us somewhere around 700 to 900 yards and he stays healthy all year, runs in 6 touchdowns, again, you need the passing to also match the rushing to have a truly outlier season. So I don't think we're getting that from Malik Willis. But I think getting him at quarterback 21 and he's quarterback 12 in points per game, that wouldn't surprise me. So I think there's a chance he could be the answer here.
Okay. I'm going through the list. I think Brock Purdy is mispriced. He's too cheap.
What about King Goffrey?
He goes where I feel like he should go.
Quarterback 16.
I know he's finished ahead of this the last 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is.
Easiest schedule in the league. All the dome games. Laporta's coming back. More Jahmyr Gibbs on the field means more efficiency in the screen game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think he could just get drug along to the quarterback 8 finish again, and we're like, he did it again.
We already talked about Kyler a lot. All right, let me give you one. This is more of what if? Okay, so Daniel Jones had an outlier season, correct? He's being punished based on his injury, and I usually follow you with all injury-related stuff. He's QB 25. So that is think about what he was last year, which was I think QB 8 on a points per game basis. And then now he's punished so far down that I feel like he can be a win rate player.
He could be.
Like, I know we're expecting regression for the Colts across the board. And yet, I go back to this team and I go, well, I'm not paying that price for Daniel Jones. I am paying that price for Jonathan Taylor, but I'm not really paying it for the passing game. And, we talked about Alec Pierce. We've talked about Tyler Warren. We talked about Josh Downs. And then I look at Daniel Jones like, well, if I like some of those players at their cost, I feel like Daniel Jones is mispriced for the right tail outcome, which doesn't have to be QB 8 points per game. It could be QB 13.
Yeah, I've actually taken more of him than I was planning to this year. And it's not because I think he's like an awesome player this year. It's just like he's quarterback 25. Every quarterback on the board is priced up. Sometimes you get boxed out and you need quarterback 3. And I have a lot of Josh Downs and a lot of Tyler Warren. And so just naturally from a backdoor stack standpoint, I have more Daniel Jones than I thought. It's actually interesting talking through him. I do think the rushing will come down, but I was actually looking right now at his numbers last year. He didn't really run that much. He only averaged...
He had the touchdowns.
12. He had some touchdowns, yeah. He had 5 touchdowns on the ground. But like yardage, he only averaged 12 rushing yards a game. It's like...
You could do that.
I literally could probably do that. Come on. The thing that I caution with him, and the price is baked in, so I'm not saying like this is a triple count thing, but he has never averaged more than 6.8 yards per pass attempt in his career, and it skyrocketed to 8.1 last year. So I just think naturally with Alec Pierce injury and all that, you're probably getting a player who's like a good bet for hitting your lineup every now and then, but not a player that's irreplaceable. Whereas like last year, if he had stayed healthy, you might have like needed some Daniel Jones to win some tournaments, So I think he's fine.
Okay. I just warmed up to the fact where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to, already be down on him, but I think his price is so far down that I want to make sure that I'm getting my Daniel Jones exposure at QB 25, 145th off the board. And I think there is a chance that he leapfrogs CJ Stroud, sad day, and Sam Darnold. But at the end of the day, like, I think he's good where he goes. Next week's episode, I do need to give this little fun caveat. We are doing our best ball league winners.
Oh, pressure's on, dude. Daniel Jones.
I went through the episode. A little spoiler. We talked about CMC. That was one of our guys.
Okay, we got one thing right.
I'm not even going to mention our wide receivers. I will next week. I'll make sure to be accountable with what we said. Our wide receivers weren't great, but we hit on some good ones last year. We'll give you our players that we are basically banking on, and it should be a good episode. Betz, sign us off.
Yes, sir. Always a fun episode talking some best ball in June. We are turning the page to July next week for the 4th of July. Should be a good one next week talking league winners. We'll see you then. Have a good week. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids.
We only met a month ago. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
In the U.S., there's a break-in every 26 seconds. But when intruders step near, Simply Safe Home Security steps up.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Using AI alerts, U.S.-based live agents help deter break-ins. Simply Safe, no long-term contracts. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.